where I was at. Served there from March 8th to September 20th this year. And what I'm going to do is just go into a little bit of background myself and what the mission was over there, and then open up to questions. I know you guys have some questions on these sheets. You're supposed to answer any questions that you might have about what's going on over in Iraq or about the military in general. I'm a Bloomington Normal native, graduated from Normal West in 1997. Went to school at Lakeland College in Mattoon, and then again at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. I entered into the Marine Corps May 24th, 1999. Went to Marine Corps boot camp, and then Marine Corps Infantry School. That's my occupation. The Marines is infantry. Then I got my bachelor's degree at Southern Carbondale last December, and in January is when my unit was activated to go to Iraq. In fact, we got the phone call that told us we were being activated on Christmas Eve, so that was probably not the best Christmas gift my parents ever got for me, but I had to tell them that I was going to Iraq on Christmas. January 5th, we reported into Terre Haute, Indiana. That's where our unit's out of, is Terre Haute, Indiana. Reported in there. And spent about a week in Terre Haute doing a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork associated in transferring from the reserves to the active. Then went to California for the rest of January and most of February doing training. That's one of the big differences between the reserves and the active. In the Marines, you're trained exactly the same. All the schools I've gone to are all active duty schools. We train the same boot camp out in California and everything, except the big difference is we don't have the time to rehearse and practice these skills. We learn them and do what we can on our weekends. So whenever reserve units are activated, they usually spend a lot of time refreshing those skills and just do a lot of your basic infantry stuff out there, a lot of weapons handling, a lot of patrolling, a lot of urban warfare training. They have a new urban warfare training system that's not necessarily the open warfare training that you typically see. Like if you see movies like Full Metal Jacket, the second part when they're fighting in Way City, or Enemy at the Gates in World War II, that's the type of urban warfare we've been trained in before. And the new type that we were going through is a lot more toned down. You're acting more or less like a police officer rather than a soldier. Did that until about February, and then we got on a cargo plane and flew from California to Ramstein, Germany, and then on to Kuwait. We stayed in Kuwait at a place called Camp Victory, which is right at the Kuwaiti border. We stayed there for a week or so, and then convoyed from the Udari Range Complex. We moved from Camp Victory to the Udari Range Complex. It's a big training area that the U.S. military uses out there when they're training in desert environments. We staged there for a few days waiting to get our convoy together to convoy up into Iraq. And it took us about 3 days to get from Kuwait to the prison. And the prison is just west of Baghdad, it's about a 45-minute drive. Once we got there at the prison, we got our different duty assignments. There were 4 platoons in our company, and each of us had a different assignment there in the prison. My first assignment, I was a convoy commander. My main convoy route was from the prison to Baghdad. That's what this is here. This is the military map of Baghdad. You can kind of see this interchange here. They have a highway system that's very similar to ours. And prison, if you were following, prison would probably be over here somewhere. And we leave the prison, get on the road, take this interchange up here, and take this main supply route this direction through checkpoint 12. And if you hear about the green zone, whenever they mention the green zone in the news, this is the area that they're talking about. The U.S. military installation inside Baghdad, right here where the Tigris River bends around. And it's where a lot of the headquarters is at. Paul Bremer, his office used to be in there. It's also the military and cultural center of Baghdad. It's where Saddam had his Ministry of Defense, his parade deck. I've been out on the parade deck. Although unfortunately the camera that I took all these pictures of with I lost. But that's why I don't have The pictures that I brought. I'm just going to start some pictures around. You can look at them. That's from my time in Iraq. If you have any questions about them, feel free to ask about them. And
Should we pull down the, I'd like to pull down the map and show them
Yeah.
Iraq. You got your desk maps. So find Iraq. You studied Mesopotamia last year in 6th grade and the Fertile Crescent. Find Iraq. We'll point to Iraq here so you can focus there. Are you going to tell them about coming into Kuwait? I had you already said Kuwait.
Yes.
With this class.
Yeah.
All right, when he arrived, he took the same route that we saw all of those tanks on the first day of the war. In April of 2003, when the war started, we saw on the TV the tanks going down those roads for I can't remember how many hours. It seemed like 2 or 3 days before they reached Baghdad. And Kuwait is right here on the Persian Gulf. Find it on your map. And Corporal Bostic will tell you what it looks like.
if you like going to the beach, you love Kuwait because that entire country is a beach. And there's just, you'll see a picture in there of where just an open out stretch of sand and vehicles, and that's the Udari Range complex there in Kuwait.
Are there any trees?
No, you'll see a bush every once in a while, that's about it. Most of the trees there are either at natural oases or created oases, that's the only, wherever you see green, that's where there's water at. So if there's no water, then it's just open sand.
So it's kind of like a cartoon, an animated cartoon of the desert. It is nothing but
Just
sand.
nothing.
And there are a couple pictures.
Where was I at? It's up there on the parade deck. You'll see pictures on this news every once in a while, like these big, huge cross swords at either end. That's the parade deck. I've been there. I've been to the Iraqi Tomb of the Unknown Soldier to commemorate the Iraqis lost in the Iran-Iraq War. Just all that area is right there inside the green zone. That was my main responsibility. 3 or 4 times a week, I'd get my convoy together, and we were mainly taking people to the hospital. They have a very large hospital there in the green zone. That's what I was doing. I was taking U.S. personnel or prisoners to get treated there at the hospital. Also, I had another responsibility of taking convoys up to Camp Anaconda, and that's just like southwest of Tikrit, I believe. Tikrit, of course, is Saddam's hometown. And other than the Anaconda and the Green Zone run, I also did prisoner releases. When people had served their time there at the prison, or a lot of the people there at the prison are innocent. They've been picked up in American raids, and the soldiers and Marines doing the raids weren't able to determine who's a good guy and who's a bad guy there at the scene. So they just grab everybody and take them back to the prison. And people would spend anywhere from a few weeks to a few months being interrogated to find out whether they are a good or a bad guy. And the good guys are released. And that was part of my job, was to escort these buses to wherever they wanted to be released and let them out there. Did that a few times up north. Went down to Camp Babylon. If you're reading your history books about Babylon, that was the ancient capital of Mesopotamia. I believe that's correct. Mesopotamia, okay. That's now a military installation. They put an installation military around there to protect the cultural artifacts. Right there, only thing I can tell you about that place, you got to realize chow hall. So, chow hall is, of course, the cafeterias that we eat at. So, did that for a little over a month. Then I spent a month on the base quick reaction force, and it'd basically be like exactly what it says. It's a quick reaction force. If something happens on the base, like if the base were to be attacked, or mainly what the problem was is people rioting either inside the prison compound or at the front gate. The QRF would go out there to reinforce it, or if someone identified the explosive material around the base, like there was a few times where people would set up explosives by the base to try and get our convoys coming out. The QRF would go out there and secure the site so the disposal unit could go out there and dispose of the explosive. After serving the QRF for about a month, we went into tower duty, which is, I didn't outline the prison here. Abu Ghraib prison isn't a very big base at all. It's one of the smallest bases in the country. Basically, it takes up a square kilometer. You see on these maps all these little blue lines, like a little square like that, that's a square kilometer. and basic shape. That's the prison, basically the basic shape of it. We had a tower here, 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 there, 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 there. Yeah, those are all of our towers that were located around there. And I stood watch here, and you'll see pictures of like, there's a picture where I'm standing with a rifle and my machine gun. Those are all taken here in Tower 2. And you just, your main responsibility in Tower 2 is to make sure no one gets close to the prison. And the most frequent method of us being attacked was they launched mortars at us. I don't know if you know what mortars are, but it's basically it's a big metal tube with an explosive shell that you can drop down in the tube, and when it hits the bottom is when it fires and launches out of the tube. And I think we totaled up all the rounds that were fired at us, and they averaged out to below 1 round a day for the entire 7 months we were there. But I mean, it wasn't 1 round every day. I mean, you go a week or so and nothing happened. One night you just get hammered. And that was one of the main responsibilities of the tower, is to look out and see if you could find these launch sites where the mortars are being launched at us from. Other than that, it was real boring. It was probably about my worst time there at the prison. There was just, the rotation schedule we were on the tower was you'd stand watching the towers for 4 hours straight, and then you'd have 8 hours off. And it was just 2 months straight of 4 on, 8 off, 4 on, 8 off, 4 on, 8 off for 2 months straight. We lost all concept. Days ran together, weeks ran together. Just because there's no break at the time. We didn't have days off, we didn't have weekends or anything like that. It was just in and out, in and out, in and out. And it just wears on you after a while. I know just standing in one spot doesn't sound like it's very physically exerting, but by the end of your 4-hour shift, you're just, towards the end, you were just beat down, your mind was jelly, you couldn't focus or concentrate on anything. You just, all you wanted to do was sleep. But one real interesting thing that did happen in the tower, I forgot to mention this to the other class, is that here in this tower, like there's a road that runs along here, and up this direction is, which is north, is Abu Ghraib village, and like all along here for like 800 meters this way is all open field. There's a canal that ran through here. Now on this side of the prison was palm tree forest. And inside this forest was a family. It was a family farm. When in the Arabic culture, you don't really move too far away from your family. Typically, whatever your father did is what you're going to do. And when you get old enough to get up and get out on your own, you just build a house right next to your parents' house and live there. There's a big family compound in here of all these different buildings. And one day, the Marine that I was staying tower watch for, we noticed like on the balcony of this farmhouse, someone was waving at us and like holding up a little slate board, like this was writing on it. And we could tell it was English, but we couldn't tell what was written on it because we didn't have our spotting scopes at this time. So, with no way to tell them what they were saying, because we thought they were trying to warn us of an attack or they were threatening us or whatever. So I have a Marine that I'm standing tower watch for, take a box, the water that we drink is bottled water, and they come in cardboard boxes. So I just had to take apart one of these cardboard boxes. And I got a magic marker, come closer, cannot read, and hung it off the edge of the tower. Sure enough, about 20 minutes later, this kid comes walking up to the tower, and it's his sister. She was 15 years old. That's probably about the age most of you are, isn't it? 15?
13.
13, okay. Well,
12 and 13.
12, 13. Okay, well, she's 15 years old, and she was trying to get us to get our attention because she wanted us to read her scrapbook. That's what this kid was bringing up to us, was a little scrapbook about that big of just everything that interested her. It was real interesting to look through this, how Western she was. There were pictures in there of American movie stars, there were like album covers, singers in there. There was like one whole page was cut out of a magazine. It was like a BMW SUV, and she had written, I want this car. It was very Western. It reminded me a lot of my other 15-year-old cousin myself, reminded me a lot of her. But right next to those pictures were also pictures from Arabic newspapers of the war and stuff like that. I mean, it was kind of shocking. You'd see a picture of Sylvester Stallone right next to a picture of a burning body that they'd shown in the news. And it was real interesting. Her name, we had nicknamed her. She had actually been trying to signal us for a few days by the time I got the idea to write it out on the box to come closer. But me and the kid on the tower nicknamed her Princess Jasmine off of the Aladdin. Because, you know, the girl up in the tower or whatever can't come out or whatever. Well, it turns out that's her real name. So,
Jasmine?
yeah, her real name was Jasmine. I forgot to bring those pictures. I actually couldn't find them, but it was when I gave the book back, because I would have loved to have kept the book, but she wanted it back, so I sent it back down to the kid. But I also sent down a disposable camera. He took pictures of the farm and everything. Forgot those. I actually lost them. I don't know where they're at. They're buried somewhere.
Yeah.
So that was probably about the most interesting thing on my 2 months there in Tower 2. Then for a month I was at the front gate. There's these roads I'm mentioning, they're called MSRs, which is main supply routes. They're large 2-3 lane highways. We had MSR Michigan up north and MSR Mobile along the southern edge of the prison. And we had a gate over here for U.S. convoys, and we had a gate over here for civilian contractors. And it'd be local, there's a lot of local nationals, Iraqis, that work there on the base. They're either supplying construction materials, doing the construction. There's a company on base that does nothing but run the cafeteria for the prisoners to feed them local food. That's where all they came in. It was my job to stand out there at the gate with a checklist, checking people off the list to make sure they could be on the prison or not. And then once I get them through the gate, I put them in a parking lot, and then I had to move them, 3 or 4 vehicles at a time from the parking lot to our to the search area where the vehicles and the print they can be searched. Then like a week right at the end, for like a week or 2 right at the end, I worked at ECP West, and ECP stands for Entry Control Point. We had a control point here, which is ECP West, and a control point here, which is ECP East. And what we did here at West, once they came in through the front gate, they were searched, they went in West, and that's where they would get their personal identification badges. For security reasons, they weren't allowed to take their badges off base, and these badges have their picture on it, what company they work for, and they're color-coded, so people know where they weren't allowed on the base. And that's where they pick up their badges, and it's also where they turn in weapons. They usually turn in weapons there at the search pit, but after 4 o'clock, the search pit shut down because that's when we stopped letting people on base. The weapons would be brought back to our shed there at ECP West, and I would hold on to the weapons until they left the base, and I'd hand the weapons back to them. That mission ended September 17th. We sat around there till about the 20th, convoy down to the 20th to go to Al-Taqaddum, and Al-Taqaddum is further west. If you've heard of a town called Fallujah in the news, that's where Al-Taqaddum's by. It's a big Marine air base. We stayed in Fallujah we stayed at Taqaddum for a week or so, and we left Iraq officially on October 1st, flew out on a C-130, and landed in Kuwait. Flew from Kuwait to Rhine-Main, Germany, and from Germany to Baltimore, Maryland, and from Maryland back to California. And I around California for a week or so, again, just doing that end deployment process, and then take a lot of blood samples. You had to get a health evaluation, sign some more paperwork, and then flew out of California and got back to Terre Haute, Indiana, October 9th. That's basically what I did over in Iraq. Do you have any questions about anything?
Let's go back to a couple things that you mentioned first hour that I want you to pick up on before we open it up to your questions. Hang on to those questions, write them down. The Marines, how are they different from other branches of the service, including the platoons, the difference between reserve and active, and where your status is right now, and that stressful ride in the convoy on your way to Abu Ghraib, and I'm gonna go make some copies while you.
Okay. Like she was saying about the difference between the Marine Corps, It's very odd. It's actually the first time that the Marines have actually taken on a mission like what we're doing in Iraq, which is occupation duty. The Marines are not an occupying force. We're not large enough. We're at only 174,000. We're the smallest branch of service. We're part of the naval service. We're shock troops. We're usually the first ones in, the first ones out. They use us for invasions. If you notice, when the original Gulf War, the armored thrust that cut off the Republican Guard that retreated from Kuwait, that was Marines. We move very fast, very light, and that's mainly what we're used for. And as soon as the major fighting's over, they pull us out simply because we don't have the bodies to do that type of mission. But this is different. In Iraq, the last Marine, after the end of major conflict, the last Marines left Iraq in it was like October 2003. And then the Department of Defense realized that they were going to need more personnel there in Iraq to do the mission. So the Marines said, okay, we'll be back for 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, we'll see whether we can leave or whether you're going to need us to stay or wherever. So we're just there for like 2 years. And what was the other thing she mentioned? Yes.
The stressful ride.
Yes, convoys. Convoy, at all the missions I did there at the prison, the best was convoy operations. Because it wasn't nearly as boring as standing in a tower watching. I mean, it was the most dangerous mission. You hear about all these attacks going on in Iraq, and 90% of them are directed at convoys with these roadside bombs. And I came across roadside bombs for it. It's a very dangerous, stressful job, but it's more along the lines of what I came to Iraq to do, and that was to actually get out and actually do something. So I always enjoyed convoys, but they are very, very stressful. In fact, the first one that we took was the main convoy that we took from Kuwait up to the prison was 3 days long. And it was 3 days of riding in the back of the truck. And it was just between the sand, the heat, the noise, constantly worrying about getting blown up or shot at, just for 3 days straight. I mean, our nerves were fried by the time we got to the prison. But once we took it over as a mission and we had more control over where we went, what we did, it got a little bit better, and it becomes less stressful when you get more used to it, but it's still sometimes got pretty scary. Like most scared I was over there, I actually got lost in Baghdad one time. One thing we always do on convoys is you never stop. You never stop and you never stick around long enough to find out what type of trouble you're going to get into, because when you stop, you become a target. It's a lot easier to hit a stationary target than it is a moving one. So I'm going through Baghdad one time, and there's a traffic jam up ahead of me. And I don't know whether it's a legitimate traffic jam or someone's deliberately trying to slow me down to hit my convoy. So I just take the exit before that one, hoping I can get on that highway and take it down and kind of do like a little box around and go on my way. Well, the next 3 exits off that one were blocked. And next thing you know, I have no clue where we're at. Because we're moving so fast that I don't have time to take a reading off my GPS monitor to try and place myself on the map. So I just tell my guys that are up in the turrets of the Humvees to look around for something familiar and drive around. We take another few more exits trying to head back east or head back west in the direction I know we should be going, or know we came from. And one of my guys like, I recognize that tower, I recognize that tower. And what it was is these mosques. When you see a mosque and it has these towers around, those towers are called minarets. And that's what he spotted, was this minaret, this real big mosque that we always pass going on there. So, and there's no traffic laws in Iraq, so we just pulled across a few lanes of traffic, crashed through the median, across the other lanes of traffic, and there was a fence or a yard involved, and then there was another fence and a couple more medians, and then we were back out on the highway we were supposed to be on, and we pulled into the green zone. What else? Anybody else remember?
Wasn't it the difference between inactive and inactive?
Okay, I was in the reserves, but the reserves, it's I serve 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer, and I think I already hit on this, that we go through the same training as the active duty side, but we just don't have the time to practice it. You can't reinforce those skills to the level they're supposed to be just doing it 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. So they make those weekends on us as hard as they possibly can. I mean, there's been weekends where I've gone over 48 hours with no food or sleep or anything like that, just to keep the tempo up to get that training in. But when we're activated is when, that's why you always have to have that few months before you go overseas to brush up on that training, to relearn old skills, and to find home and to practice the skills you already do know. But one advantage that we do have, and some would call it an advantage, some would call it a disadvantage, that a lot of the people that we serve with are from the same area. Like I said, the unit's out of Terre Haute, anywhere from a third to half the people in the company. And the company's about 140 men, 130, 140 men. And you know, these guys from your hometown, I serve with one guy who's a teacher in Unit 5. My squad leader lives down the road from me. Another guy on my fire team, we enlisted together. You know, it's just, you're not serving with a bunch of random strangers. You miss out on the diversity of working with people from all over the country and sometimes all over the world. But then again, you're fighting alongside your friends and neighbors and stuff like that. And I believe you build a little bit closer bond with those type of people. I mean, you really think about the things that you do more when you realize that the guy next to you, once you're done serving over here together, you're going to go back home together and have to put up with each other from then on. So, question?
What does BCP mean again?
Entry control. Yep.
What was the prison name?
Abu Ghraib. I actually erased all this. I didn't want to write this down. Abu Ghraib. Okay. Yeah, there's many different pronunciations of Abu Ghraib, Abu Ghraib, Abu Ghraib, and so on and so forth. There's just many spellings, but that's pretty much the one that's accepted because the Arabic language is so different from what we have. They have a totally different alphabet, totally different sounds and word structures and stuff. And that's just the English letters you can group together to mimic the Arabic sounds, is all that is.
On your uniform, it has like sort of square looking things. Like, how come it has that when like other ones that I've seen look like that? Like it's a
Okay, this is the Marine Corps digital pattern, and it's unique to the Marine Corps. This is actually the first uniform that's ever been computer designed. What they did was, the main reason is the Marines, we typically like to look different from everyone else. We see our uniforms are different, we train different than everyone else, we act different from everyone else, and we want our uniforms to reflect that. So when they decided to come up with a new camouflage unit, they created a computer program that would basically fed it pictures and color combinations of desert environments all over the world. And that's the pattern that it spit out that best mimicked all those different patterns. Then it's also, the fabric this is made with is also treated to create a lower infrared light signature. Like if you're looking, night vision goggles, what they do is they reflect and magnify infrared light. And like if your clothing, if you would look at it under an infrared light, some types of clothing would glow brighter than the others because of what they've been treated with and what type of fabric it is. And that type of fabric and what it's been treated with creates a very low infrared signature, so it doesn't reflect as much infrared light as other uniforms. We have the same pattern or the same style that's in woodland. It's the greens and the browns as opposed to the desert camouflage. Answer your question? Sure.
Do you know what the total number of days you were in Iraq?
It was 7 months, almost 7 months exactly. Total days, no, just from March 8th to September 20th. Or actually, in Iraq itself would be it'd be March 5th to October 1st.
What'd you do in your free time besides sleeping?
We actually, We actually had our living arrangements pretty good there, and that's most of what we did was hang out there at the barracks. And the barracks that we stayed in was the old prison cell blocks. And yeah, we slept inside prison cells, and the prison cells were like 20 by 20. I mean, they were decent sized. And we only had like 4 people per one. And we were able to get like 2x4s of plywood and cut that up into 4 smaller rooms to where you could sleep and have a little shelf to put your stuff on. But we left the space open in the center as kind of like a little living room where we put up a loft where we could throw our packs and everything up there to keep it out of the way. One of our convoy missions, we went to a place where we could actually buy TVs, got a little TV with a DVD player in it. That's mainly what we did, is just hang out there at the barracks, watch a movie. We built a basketball court, a volleyball pit outside. I read a lot of books. I think I went through like 20-some books while I was over there. So, and that's varied to the others. A lot of guys didn't read anything. They just played basketball and volleyball their entire time. Or there were some guys that just slept their entire time. They get off ship and they fall asleep. That's just what they did to unwind. So it was varied. There's also a lot of these bases have what are called MWR rooms, and I don't know what MWR stands for, but it's a rec room. There's TVs and video games and board games and stuff like that. And there's also rooms they'll ask around people there on the base who knows different things. Like if they have someone who knows how to do aerobics, they'll have them come in and do aerobic classes, or just whatever takes your mind off of where you're at, really. But that's basically what we do in our free time. Was there a question over here?
Oh yeah. Don't like the DVDs and videos come out earlier, like really early?
Yeah, they're bootlegged.
Yeah.
And when I mean bootlegged, I mean bootleg. Like it's the guy sitting in the seat in the movie theater with a video camera videotaping it. But yeah.
Because my dad, he knew someone that was in Iraq, and he brought him like the newest Lord of the Rings, and it was like he got it like 2 months before it was actually supposed to come out on DVD like here.
Did you eat anything besides MREs?
Yeah, the cafeterias, we call them chow halls, the Army calls them DFACs, just whatever. It had like regular cafeteria food, like what you get here. I don't think, the only time I ever ate an MRE was, I think, on the convoy up there. And for those who don't know, MRE is the field ration, stands for Meals Ready to Eat. It's a plastic bag that you open up, and there's all little boxes and bags in there with food. But yeah, I don't think, the only time I ate one of those was on the convoy up there. So the rest of the time, in fact, when we got there to the prison, the chow hall was really bad. I mean, it gets you sick eating food. I mean, I think like the first meal we had, we showed up there with shrimp lasagna. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, there are guys that got sick from eating there. So that's one of the things we loved about going on these convoy missions was whenever we convoyed someplace else, we'd always use their chow. If we were coming back from like a prisoner release, we'd keep our eyes out for the nearest military base and go in there and use their chow hall rather than eat at the prison. So.
You were there during the summer.
Yes.
And so did you talk about the heat at all while I was out of the room?
No, I didn't.
I'd like to ask you about the heat.
It's hot. You sweat a lot.
Tell them, what are some of the temperatures and how, we
No.
see this on TV, and it's a long question, but the
It's-
guys are completely covered up with their helmets, their all the other equipment, and it's what temperature?
When we got there, it's a lot hotter in the southern latitudes. Like when we were there in February in Kuwait, it was already up in around 100 degrees. Then you get up to the prison, and it cooled down considerably once we got as far north as Baghdad. But then it just gradually got warmer and warmer and warmer. And I think the hottest we recorded was in June or July, and one of the thermometers in one of our towers topped out at 135. You just
How do you,
We-
we
we-
just die when it gets above 90.
Well, if I were to crank this room up to 135 degrees right now, yeah, everyone here would start freaking out. But if you spread those heat increments out over several months, yeah, it's still hot, but it didn't seem any hotter than what it normally would here at home.
That's what I kind of figured.
Your
was
body-
that you
your body
and you
acclimates
train
to it.
also
Mhm.
with all that equipment. Do they train here in the States or anyplace else to get you ready for that heat?
We did, it was cold when we trained in California. But there is, the desert training that they do in the States goes down to 29 palms. For the Marines, it's 29 palms California. For the Army, it's the same Mojave Desert area. There's 29 palms, there's in the National Training Center for the Army. And it gets close, it gets up to like 120 degrees there for a few days out of the year.
So you just go about your business and you just ignore the heat?
Yeah, 'cause if you think about it, you freak out.
Did the prison have air conditioning?
Yes, yes we did, inside the buildings. In fact, each of our prison cells had its own air conditioner in it. And all the buildings there were air conditioned. Well, and it's because they have to be. I don't want to say you have to be, because the first units to get there, the first units in the invasion didn't have any air conditioning whatsoever. But it's one of the first things that comes up in the supply line is air conditioners.
So, do you think that this could be like stopped if it have to be done? Like, I mean, like if the war ended, and then do you think that another war can be like prevented?
Yes, as far as preventing another Iraqi invasion, the countries around there have seen what happened to Iraq. We told Saddam what we wanted to happen. He ignored us, and then we invaded him. The other countries see this, and to some extent, they don't want themselves to be invaded or to have sanctions levied against them or stuff like that. So they come around. In fact, Iran has held free elections. Libya and Syria have opened up to weapons instructors or weapons inspectors and have stopped their nuclear programs. And you don't hear a lot about on the news. There's been a pretty large shift in the Middle East in their attitudes towards America now. They know that we won't bluff when we say we will punish you for not following, UN mandates. And as far as stopping terrorism abroad, I know the same question was asked last hour. And as far as stopping terrorists, and as you kids get older, one of the things you have to realize is you're not going to be living in a totally safe society. There's nothing you can do you cannot live in an open society like ours and still be 100% safe. You're just going to have to live with the higher probability or a higher risk of something happening. And I don't want to give anybody nightmares at night or worrying about stuff like that. I mean, it's not going to get as bad as, let's say, like Israel here. But, this terrorist movement is just something that you're just going to have to get used to. And once someone like a suicide bomber, and you have to get used to it because you can't stop these people. Once someone has got in their mind that they hate you more than they love their own life, there's nothing you can do to stop it. You can't filter everybody out and still keep an open democratic society. So these people are going to get through, but what we can do is go after these societies and the conditions that create people like that hate someone more than they love their own life. And it's kind of like, the best metaphor I got that I heard on this one was cockroaches in the kitchen. Yeah, you have to stomp the ones running across the floor, but if you don't clean out the garbage and improve the kitchen, then their breeding grounds are going to still keep producing more and more cockroaches.
Do you think that giving freedom to other people is like could be like maybe a threat in the future? Like giving freedom to like other countries?
No. The more freedom people have, the better off they are. The better off they are, the less they want to hate people that have a better life. We've learned this lesson the hard way. September 11th was when we learned it, that for the past 30, 40 years, the United States and Europe have basically treated the Middle East like a gas station. As long as the oil flowed out of there, we could care less what they did to their own people. I mean, in Saudi Arabia, women aren't allowed to have jobs or miss it.
We all got so involved that that is the end of the class period. I'm sorry that we have to end it. All right, your turn to say thank you.
You're welcome.
I missed my next class.
One grenade launcher. No, I'm just visiting his class. Yeah, I brought back the pictures. I brought back this man. I actually bought a full Arabic dress. It's the. I don't know what they call them. No. They wear. They wear robes. It's the robe. When I say dress, I don't mean dresses and dresses. Dresses. I don't know what they call them. We call them man dresses. And there's the underlayer is a robe that like from here up it's shirt. It has a little bit of shirt pocket in the sleeves, but then it's just a robe from there down. And that's where you see a lot of the people wearing these, man. It's comfortable. And then you got then for formal occasions or wherever there's a robe that goes over that. I have that one. I have the shemagh or the headdress.
Maybe I have to listen to music.
Yeah, we had there's Armed Forces Radio over there. There's Baghdad. It's like a pop music station over here that plays a big station that plays a little bit of everything. And I have my MP3 player that I had songs on, and a lot of guys had their own MP3s or CD players, things like that. In fact, when we were on convoys, one of the guys in one of my trucks took the little speakers that plug into the CD player. There's a cargo net in the back of the Humvee where he rigged up these speakers in the CD player. Now, I never allowed him to listen to it while we were out on the road on mission, but if we were on a base somewhere driving from place to place, you had to crank up the radio and be going down the road.
I didn't know the American music over.
Yeah, well, they're like I said, they're Armed Forces Radio. And you can bring your own music with you. The PX, when I say PX, that's like the post exchange where you buy stuff. And they have their own little music department or wherever where you can buy CDs.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Callie, have you found the one veteran for today?
Bill Mack, age 40, and he died October 23rd.
Thank you, veteran, for serving our country. And with that, I'll turn the rest of the class over to Corporal Bostic. Welcome.
Well, like I said, my name is Corporal Bostic. I served Kilo Company, 3rd Battalion, 24th Marine Regiment in Iraq for our Operation Iraqi Freedom 2. Stationed at Abu Ghraib Prison. Probably heard of the place. It's where all those pictures of the prisoners being abused. That was the place where I was stationed at. Give you a little bit of background on myself. I'm a Bloomington Normal native. I graduated from Normal Community West in 1997. I went to college 2 years at Lakeland College in Mattoon, and then I got my bachelor's degree in agricultural mechanization at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. I got my bachelor's degree last December, and that's also when my unit was deployed to Iraq. In fact, we got the phone call telling us we were going to be deployed on Christmas Eve. So that was a Christmas present that I got to give my parents that Christmas, was to tell them that I was going to Iraq. We checked in at Terre Haute, Indiana for our mobilization. Terre Haute, Indiana is where our unit is stationed out of. There, like I said, on January 5th. Spent a week there in Terre Haute doing paperwork, and then we left for Camp Pendleton, California for our training. That's one of the big differences between active duty and reservists, is that we've been trained the same way, but we don't have the same experience as far as training goes, whereas we learn it and practice it on the weekends and 2 weeks in the summer. That's their job. They're just doing it all the time. So whenever a reserve unit gets activated, there's usually a few months of training to brush up on new skills or really relearn some old ones. We did just basic infantry stuff. That's my job, is infantry. There's a lot of weapons handling. We did some urban warfare training, and then we were on a cargo plane leaving out of California to Kuwait. Once we got to Kuwait, we were staged there at Camp Victory, which is right on the Kuwaiti border. We were there at Camp Victory for a week, and then moved up to the Udari Range Complex, which is still in Kuwait, just even closer to the border. We were there for like 3 days before we got our convoy together to head into Iraq. We convoyed for about 3 days straight to get from Kuwait to the prison, and that was probably one of the toughest things that we did while we were in country, was that convoy, because it's 3 days straight in the back of a truck with the wind, the noise, and the sand, and just all that time out on the road is dangerous. A lot of the attacks you see over there are these roadside attacks with bombs and stuff going on. Once we got to the prison, the company, the military, we actually taken over for a military police company. They were leaving, we were taking over their job. So as soon as we got to the prison, our different platoons in our company started getting our different duty assignments, and my first duty assignment was a convoy commander. And I had a dedicated run pretty much from the prison to the green zone in Baghdad. Now, this is a map of Baghdad here, and green zone is the U.S. military compound inside Baghdad. It's where all of our headquarters is at. There's also Saddam's headquarters, because the Ministry of Defense is inside there. There's also, the reason I was going there is there's a hospital there, 31st Combat Surgical Hospital, and it was my job to get people, soldiers and prisoners from the prison to the hospital for medical tests or surgery or whatever. I also did that about 3 or 4 times a week, and then usually once a week we were heading up to Camp Anaconda, which is in Crete. Now I got this map here. This is a souvenir map that I was able to pick up while I was over there. And where's this? Okay, you can see Iraq here. Here's Baghdad, and the prison was probably 45 minutes straight west on this MSR. It's not a very big place, it's not on this map. We went as far north as Camp Anaconda, which, like I said, is just south of Crete being Saddam's hometown. And that's basically what I did on there. Now, every once in a while, we'd have prisoner releases where we would release prisoners that had either been found innocent or they completed their prison term. So we release them. And they just load up on charter buses, and we escort the charter buses to wherever that group of prisoners chose to be released at. That went down basically all over inside this area here. Like I said, we went as far north as Crete, as far south as Alapilla, which is right there. And just south of there, we actually stopped in the base while we were down there to Camp Babylon. Well, remember your history, Camp Babylon was the ancient capital of Mesopotamia. Well, it's still there. It's still a town. And in fact, now it's a military base. We put a military installation there to protect the cultural artifacts. So got to see that place. Did convoy security for about a month and a half to 2 months, I don't remember. And then we left We gave up the convoy missions, so my squad went to the base QRF, which is a quick reaction force, which is exactly what it is. You respond very quickly to instances there on the base. If the base was to be attacked in some location, we would be sent there to reinforce them. More than likely, what we must end up doing if there are riots or suspicious activities outside of the gates or the wall around the wall, we'd reinforce those locations. There was a few times a couple of our QRFs were called out for a prison riots. We never actually dealt with the prisoners, but the majority of them were held in this outside compound where they slept in tents, and there was just chain link fence around them, and what we would do would be pull up to the fence, surround the fence to make sure none would escape that way. Spent about a month in QRF and then moved into Tower Watch. Had pulled security on the tower for 2 months, and most important thing we did up in the tower was to watch for mortar launches, which was the most common way we were attacked, was the insurgents would fire mortars at us. Just for those who don't know, a mortar is basically a metal tube. And the thing looks like a big bullet with tail fins on it, and you drop this round inside the tube, and when it hits the bottom of the tube, there's a firing pin down there which launches it. And it's an explosive device that's launched out of the tube, and they usually fire those anywhere between 700 and 900 meters away from us. And the most important thing we did up in the towers was try and look for those launch sites, because sometimes you could hear them and get a pretty good direction on which way they're coming, or sometimes if you get close enough, you'd see the flash or the spark from the launching. Other than that, it was pretty boring. Didn't do, just basically stood up there and pulled security on the prison. Then after 2 months of that, I did a month of working the front gate. There's a lot of local nationals or Iraqis that come on base as workers. There's a lot of construction going on the base. So there's a lot of workers coming on and a lot of supplies coming onto the base. That was my job up at the front gate, was to screen these people to make sure they were supposed to be on the base. I would check their vehicle badges and station in a parking lot, and then in groups of 2s and 3s I would send their vehicles back to our search pit. I have, before I forget, pictures. And there's pictures that we had to actually detonate a vehicle inside the search pit. We found an explosive device in the gas tank, and it had to be detonated in place because we didn't know what the trigger was. And there's pictures of that in there. There's also pictures of me in the tower in Kuwait and stuff like that. That was probably the most excitement we had up there, was that truck. I was up at the front gate a few times for like one drive-by, and there's a village just south of the prison that we took some fire from one time. And then for the last 2 weeks we were there, I moved to Entry Control Point West, which was when the vehicles were cleared through the search pit, they would go through Entry Control Point West, where the vehicles would be parked, and they would get their personnel badges issued to them. And for security reasons, they weren't allowed to take the badges off base when they showed up in the morning. When they showed up and when they left is when they'd pick up or hand in these badges. And it has the company that they work for, where they're supposed to be, where they're not supposed to be, and their picture on it. And I was responsible for keeping track of who came in, who came off the base, and handing out those badges. Also stored a lot of weapons in that shed there, because when they went through the vehicle search pit, the Iraqis are allowed to carry weapons. I think they're allowed to have in their possession one rifle, one pistol. And they carry these with them for personal protection, to protect them against bandits and insurgents who want to attack. I mean, the workers on base would simply be attacked for working with the Americans. So they carry those for personal defense, and they hand those and cell phones in there to the search pit. Well, when the search pit closed down at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the weapons would be brought back to ECP West, and I was responsible for them until those people left and claimed their weapons. Like I said, did that for 2 weeks. Our mission there at the prison officially ended September 17th. We left the prison in a convoy on September 20th, and we convoyed to Al Taqada, which is south of Fallujah. Here's Baghdad, and this large body of water here is Lake Habaniya, and Al Taqada is on the southern edge of that. It was an old Iraqi air base, now it's a Marine base. And we waited there. We were linking up with the rest of our battalion there, and that took a little over a week. And we officially left Iraq October 1st. and flew into Kuwait. And from Kuwait, we flew to Germany, Baltimore, Maryland, and then back to California. And then there was another week of doing paperwork in California, getting medically cleared to go back home. And our plane arrived in Terre Haute October 9th. And that, in a very quick nutshell, was my service in Iraq. So I guess I can open it up now for questions. If I went over anything too quickly, or if you just have questions about the war.
What's your favorite weapon?
My favorite weapon would be, it'd be a toss-up, probably the squad automatic weapon, because I carried it for like 2 or 3 years, and it's just a very important weapon to the rifle squad. It's the base of your firepower, and it fires the same round as the M16 rifle, but it's fully automatic and belt-fed. And they call it, the SAW stands for squad automatic weapon, but it also means literally you can cut trees in half with the damn thing. So.
What were your first thoughts when you were called to go outside?
How I was going to tell my parents, because I had known that we were going to get called up for quite a while. We'd known as early as Thanksgiving. So, yeah, that was throughout my deployment. I remember that being the one thing I was really concerned about was what my parents thought, and not having them up all night worrying. In fact, I never even told them that I was doing convoy security the entire time I was over there. I didn't even tell them until I was back home, because I just knew that would really worry them. So, you know, like the first 2 months I'd call and ride home and be like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just standing guard duty. I didn't tell them that I was driving to Baghdad every other day. So, yeah, when I first got the call, I'm like, how am I going to be able to tell my parents about this? So that was my first thought whenever I got the phone call.
When did you leave the prison?
September 20th was when we left. They're back.
Did you or anybody that was next to you or anything get killed?
No, we didn't have a single fatality in our company, and we only had one person injured due to enemy fire, and it was a kid named Travis Roll. He was he brand new to the unit. He had just checked in like a month or two before he got deployed, and we were on a convoy, and he was riding up in the turret of his Humvee, and a roadside bomb blew up. And all he had, the only thing that he got hurt was he caught a piece of shrapnel here on the other side of his arm. And shrapnel is the metal fragments thrown off by an exploding bomb. And he caught one of those pieces of shrapnel in his arm. But luckily there was a medic right there in the Humvee that got the bleeding stopped. He didn't even really bleed that bad, but he had a bandage on it right away. But the biggest damage caused by that was like the piece of metal nicked a nerve or something. So it's kind of like this side of his hand, and these 3 fingers kind of feel like they're asleep the entire time. So that's the only injury that we had the entire time we were there, no fatalities. There was another company in our battalion, though, that had like 1 or 2 Marines killed in action. So, next question.
Do you have the prisoners escape at all?
Yes. While we were on watch, we had, I think, 3 made them out of the wall, out of the outside wall. Now the prison is a walled compound, probably about a square kilometer in size. And inside of this is 4 other smaller walled compounds where U.S. personnel stay. And outside of the main compound is the outside prison tent, is the outside prison yard. And it's tents surrounded by concertina wire, which is the barbed wire looking stuff, and chain link fence. Now prisoners escape from there on a regular basis, but we were able to track down all but 3 of those guys, and yeah, we just had those 3 escape on our watch. Now before we got there, when it was, because they didn't have the best base security set up before we got there. When we got there, we took over all the towers, and it was 1 unit in charge of the entire base defense. Before we got there, all the different units at their prison were responsible for 1 or 2 towers. Like if this side of the class is in 1 unit, you had towers 1, 2, and 3, and like if this was a separate unit, they'd have towers 4, 5, and 6, and that's how it went. It really wasn't the best system, and I think they had close to 30 escape while they were in that system. So I mean, there was 1 tower that they didn't even man because of the smell. there was to dispose of all the human waste, because there's no plumbing on base. It's all porta-johns and using water out of the tank and stuff like that. And this was just before they got this, before a better system up and running. It was just like this southeast corner, this field in the southeast corner of the base was where these trucks filled with the waste from the porta-johns would just go out there and spray it on the ground. And the unit that was responsible for that tower in that corner, the smell they thought was too bad to stand, so they just never put anybody in the tower. They just put a piece of barbed wire across the door and called it good enough. And that's where everyone escaped from. They'd get outside of their prison compound and crawl through the weeds until they get to the tower, pull back the barbed wire, and up the tower and out the other side. But we put up with the stink and actually put people in those towers. There's actually a few times we caught prisoners. The Marines were up there standing watching the tower, and they'd hear the prisoner walking up the stairs. The prisoner didn't know that the Marines were manning the tower, and they caught him that way. So. Anybody else?
Did you ever use a missile launcher?
No, I never used a rocket launcher. I don't think anybody did while we were there. It's actually a very difficult weapon to use. It's not like on the movies where you can just pop up and fire this thing. It's and that's because of the backblast that it creates. Unlike a rifle that uses the expanding gases of the propellant to force around down the tube, the rocket is self-propelled. So when you fire this thing, you have a tube that you fire it from, and the back end is open. When you turn on that rocket, you have this backblast behind you that is just as lethal as the warhead on ground. So there's really not a whole lot of cases or locations where you can use a rocket launcher. We were never in one of those situations. So, anybody else?
Where did you sleep?
We slept in, they called it LSA Shadow. That means living security area. It was one of those walled compounds I was talking about. And it was actually, we slept in old Iraqi prison cells that had been, the unit before us had repainted them, and each room is about a 20 by 20 cell, and 4 of us slept to a room. And each room had its own air conditioner and power supply. And me and my roommates were actually got a hold of some 2x4s and plywood and put up our own walls on the inside of it. So each of us had like our own little sleeping area. And then we left an area open in the middle for like a living room. We built a loft where we could throw our packs and sea bags up there to get them out of the way. And underneath, we put our chairs. We actually were able to buy a little TV about that big with a DVD player on it so we could watch movies. So we had pretty good living while we were there. It wasn't a majority of the people that are over there are sleeping in tents. And they reinforced the tents by putting sandbags up around and stuff like that. But we had 2-3 feet of reinforced concrete above our head.
How long were you in Iraq?
From March 5th to October 1st was when we were in Iraq. And we served there at the prison from March 8th to September 20th.
So how long?
7 months.
Oh, was the food good?
Not really. It got better. The first chow hall that was there at the prison was really, really, really bad. I mean, it was just, well, our first meal there was shrimp lasagna. If that tells you anything. And I mean, it was so bad it actually made you sick sometimes. And that's why that was one of the great things about being on convoy duty, that wherever we were at, we always tried to stop at other people's chow halls and eat there. So, but once KBR, which is the civilian contractor responsible for rebuilding Iraq, it's part of Halliburton. Once they took over the chow hall and served right, it got a lot better. It's basically food like a school cafeteria, basic type food.
Where'd you get home?
We got home is in Illinois on October 9th.
Could they ever still call you back?
Yes, well, not necessarily me, because my contract with the Marines is up in May, and our unit's not going anywhere before May. But the battalion is slated, temporarily or tentatively slated to go back to Iraq in 2006 if Marines still continue to have a presence in the country, because Marines typically aren't an occupation force. At only 174,000 personnel, where I really don't have the manpower to sustain a long occupation. We're the assault troops, the first ones in, the first ones out. So if the Marine Corps as a whole chooses to stay in Iraq, or if the Defense Department really still wants to Iraq to keep personnel numbers up, then yeah, Keel Company will be going back in there probably around 2006, early 2006.
Did you meet like any children there? Like,
Yeah, quite a few actually. You'd always see them out on the road when you're on convoys. Like if your convoy was stopped for some reason, like you were waiting for a bomb to get cleared out of the way, there were always kids around. When we were up in the tower, we were right next to town, Abu Ghraib village, and two brothers, Malik and Amudi, they're probably 8, 9 years old. They would always show up at our tower to ask for. They'd entertain us for an hour or so. They'd always be goofing around doing something crazy in front of the tower, like they begged for candy and food and stuff like that. And we actually rigged up a little box on a string, like we had a piece of string that went from the railing on our tower to the base of the fence, and we had like a little shoebox that hung from the underside of it with the string attached to it. We put what they really wanted most of the time was like soap and shampoo and stuff like that. So if we could find some soap and shampoo someplace, we'd throw it in the box and lower it down to them. Then while I was out at the front gate, there was a kid named Hamzi who was, again, just a local of the village there by the prison. And every day he'd just show up and hang out with us. He knew enough English that he could kind of act as a translator if we needed him. And we'd pay him a few bucks every week to pick up the trash around there. $2 was a lot of money to that kid. So, we chip in, each give him $1 or so, and he'd pick up all the trash around there, around our bunker. We'd feed them lunch, like if we were working out there on the gate over lunchtime, we'd send one person back to the chow and pick up box lunches. And every one of the squads, there's 12 chows, and we'd pick up an extra chow for Hamzi, an extra chow for we adopted a dog when we were out there, so there's an extra box lunch for the dog, and a couple extra lunches for our translators that worked out there with us. So yeah, the kids are real good over there. They're real. They're real similar to the kids over here. They like to play, like to have a good time, don't like to go to school. I would say the ones that are in school go there, and the ones that are, I guess, wealthy enough to know what school is but can't go, really want to go, because the public education system we have is, I wouldn't say it's unique, but I mean, it's not everywhere in the world. Most places in the world, if you go to school, you have to pay for it. They're all private schools, and that's the way Iraq is. Schools that are up and running, the parents have to pay tuition, and if tuition, even if they can afford the tuition, things like paper and pencils and the books, because you have to purchase not only your paper and your pencils, but you also have to purchase the books that you use. Those aren't provided by the school. So yeah, there's a lot of kids over there that would really like to, but simply can't afford it. But they're overall a good bunch to be around. They're a lot better than the adults sometimes. They're always willing to goof around with you, and ask you questions, stuff like that.
if you said you had to eat that stuff, then why is there a picture of a Hardee's there?
That's in Kuwait at Camp Victory, and the bases in Kuwait are considerably better equipped, simply because they're closer to our supply. They're closer to the main supply lines. They're right there at the port. You don't have to worry about getting blown up while you're delivering stuff to these bases. So yeah, right there at Camp Victory in Kuwait, you had a chow hall, and you had the store where you could buy stuff. We call them PXs. And then right down the line was Subway, Pizza Hut, Hardee's, Baskin Robbins. So.
So when you was like around the kids and stuff, you never felt at least bit threatened or kind of scared around?
Not a bit. There's really no reason to be threatened by them. Your biggest concern is in talking to them, letting slip something that they really should need to know. In fact, as we were leaving, the kid Hamzi that always hung out with us at the gate, we had to tell him to leave and never come back, because A, it was dangerous for him because of the people attacking because the insurgents attacking people who associate with Americans, and B, it was a security hazard for us. Now, Hamzi would never do anything to hurt any of us, but then again, he's also a 9-year-old kid that wouldn't know, like you could get information out of him. He for $1, he'd tell you anything. So we didn't, and he had been up there long enough that he knew exactly how our system worked as far as vehicles getting in and where they go and what they do. And he just possessed the information that we didn't want other people to get the information this kid had just by standing up there for so long. That's the biggest concern he had about kids, was letting them know stuff that was dangerous for them. But as far as the children attacking us, no, it's not. Having children who you're fighting for is not the Arab mindset. It's for them to use children in attacks and stuff like that. It'd be very, I wouldn't say it's beyond them, but they're not at that level yet. And I don't know if they will get to that level where it's to the point where they use children for attacks. You know, they're very protective of their children, and it'd be very, for as masculine of society as that is, it'd be very embarrassing for someone to have to resort to using children to do his work, child to do his work. So, yeah, we never had any problem with kids.
After being in Iraq, what does America mean to you?
Freedom, plain and simple. First of all, from just being in the service, the freedoms that I voluntarily gave up to serve this country. Yeah, I mean, not being able to, being in a situation where you're being told what to wear, what to eat, what to think, how to act, you know, and to do that voluntarily, it's always great to come back home and be in situations, or be in an environment where I can choose what I say and what I wear and what I do on my free time. And then going to Iraq, where they're now a democracy, so technically they're free, but they're still not free because of the terrorists that are over there that are seeking to change things back to the way they were. I mean, you don't, and it's so disgusting to me that I have to search for words for it every time I seek to describe it, but the way they treat their own people is, it's disgusting. You know, killing a woman for not wearing a face veil, they will do that. The way a lot of you girls are dressed here is perfectly acceptable, but not to them. They will kill you for being dressed the way you are. They will kill you for not wearing a full-length skirt and a veil over your face. And they will kill you for associating with Americans. And they will kill you for speaking out against Islamic law. Not necessarily against the faith, but just because Islam is not just a faith, it's also a set of social laws. And there's a lot of these insurgents in other countries to be run under these very strict laws. And to speak out against that is a death sentence. For men and women who are married to associate together is, again, death sentence. I mean, that's not freedom. And it's just great to come back to America where you have all these choices of what you can do and who you do it with, stuff like that.
Did you ever catch the prisoners who got out?
Me personally,
Or like anybody?
you mean once they were outside the actual walled compound? No, we as in Kilo Company never captured them because that wasn't our responsibility to go outside the walls. Now, whether they got picked up again by other units, I have no idea. I don't know if they have it or not. Probably, I would say some of them probably have them.
Have you yourself ever caught anything?
No, the time I was on QRF was a very quiet time, so we never, we got called out for one riot, and like I said, all we had to do was make sure no one got outside the wire or anything like that. I don't think they had any reported escapes while I was on QRF.
So if you ever like seen them fighting like in the compound or anything?
Oh, prison riots? Yeah, I've seen those.
Did you just let them go? You didn't do anything to stop them?
Well, we didn't do anything about it. It was the Army MPs guarding the compound. That was their responsibility. And if it was just a scuffle, they usually just stay back until they calm down. But if it got bad enough to look like people were going to be hurt, yeah, they'd have to go in there with shields and clubs and tasers and stuff like that and break them up. it wasn't really, a majority of the riots weren't really against the prison system. Like, if they were to protest or to riot against something, it'd be they would just, one guy would be the spokesman, egging them on, and they'd start chanting and yelling and screaming. They might tear down a tent. And that'd be basically the end of it if they were upset about the prison conditions. Most of the bad riots where people were hurt were fights between inmates. It's a very insular society that, you know, I'm in this group and you're in this group, and we can't associate because we're in two different groups. And sometimes people from two different groups would be in the same compound together, and they get into an argument about something like, your clan doesn't like my clan, or you have a Shia Muslim with a Shiite Muslim, or a Sunni Muslim with a Shia Muslim, and they get into a disagreement, or stuff like that, and there'd be fights between them. Those get pretty bad sometimes. They have to go and break them up.
Did you like learn how to speak their language, or did you just continue speaking English?
I learned a few words. Mostly learned greetings, like Mahasalam Alenka, which is may God be with you. It's a traditional greeting. You walk up to someone, Mahasalam Alenka, and they reply with Wasa Islam, which I don't remember what that is back. But that's a very formal greeting. If you were to say hi to one of your friends, it'd be Shakamaku, which really has no translation. It means what's there, nothing. That's literally what you're saying, Shakamaku. And they reply back, Shakaria, which again, really, no one was ever to explain to me exactly. It doesn't really have a literal translation, but I learned a lot from searching vehicles. Lots of times they'd open the doors for you. And up there at the front gate, I just did a quick search, not a detailed search like they did back and back. But you know, like they'd open up the door and I'd look around and say Tien, which means good. Just little words like that. The biggest thing that I learned was their numbering system, which is the exact same as ours. In fact, even some of the letters look the same. Like, that's 1, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's 10. You can see a lot of the numbers are the same. And I learned that to check license plate numbers up there at the front. And like I said, it really wasn't that difficult, you know, just learning by osmosis by looking at these plates day after day, put it together with what they all mean. And that's basically all the Arabic that I learned. We had one guy who was a lot smarter than the rest of us. He was already studying Chinese, not because he was going to school for it or anything. He just decided one day to learn Chinese, so he picks up a book on Chinese and starts learning it. So we sent him to Arabic language school, which was an abbreviated course since we were leaving for Iraq soon, so he was only in that for a few weeks. But just from what little he picked up in the class and his own personal study, he got very fluent with it at the end of 7 months. He had trouble speaking it because it's such a different vocal. You have to train your mouth and your throat to work different ways to get some of the words right. So he wasn't too good at speaking it, but he can pretty much read and write it fluently at the end of the class.
In the pictures that have on, did you like wear contacts?
Yeah, I wore contacts the whole time I was there. Never really had a problem with it. In fact, my eyes are less sensitive to dust and smoke and things like that with my contacts. And I just wore them because I love my contacts. They don't remind me.
So were like the Iraqi people, were they like smart and stuff? 'Cause
Yeah.
don't they make like homemade bombs and everything?
It depends on where you come from. The people from the towns and the cities are typically very well educated because prior to the early 1990s, before the original Gulf War and up until the mid-80s, it was a very modern society. A lot of the translators that we worked with were college graduates. They'd gone to school in Baghdad. So yeah, as a whole, the ones that are educated are very well educated. Now, the poor country folk who live out in the desert, the surrounding areas, no, there's no education system there whatsoever. Some of the crazy superstitions that they believe, I mean, you can tell these people anything and they believe it, just because it's more or less because it's associated with technology. If they read something off the internet, it's believed wholeheartedly simply because, it came from an object of technology. Like they, for instance, they believe that the body armor, all the gear that we carry, we don't actually carry. There's actually anti-gravity packs in back that keep it off our shoulder. I mean, this is stuff that they believe is crazy. But as a whole, yeah, it's an educated society. There's just the people who live out in the country, I guess, are a little behind the times.
If you like did something bad, what will like consequences?
If I did something bad,
Or just like
oh, the prisoners, I don't know to the extent, like I said, we never handled prisoners. I know that if it was bad enough, they put them in isolation, which is just basically solitary confinement for whatever length of time it is. Now, the prison itself is a punishment, because like I said, it's not just terrorists and insurgents that are being kept there. They're legitimate criminals. They're murderers, robbers, rapists, arsonists, you name it, that are serving a legitimate prison term there. It is a fully functioning part of their judicial system. I mean, they've been caught by Iraqi police, tried by Iraqi judges and Iraqi jurors, and have been moved to an Iraqi jail to serve a prison term.
Last year when we had a visitor from the Army, said that they believed that you had to eat one of your parents to get into the Marines or the Army.
Yeah, that was that rumor was actually started by Saddam Hussein himself in the 1991 Gulf War as incentive for his people not to surrender. He told his people that the Marines not only you had to cannibalize. If I remember correctly, you had to cannibalize a close relative to become a Marine officer, but you had to cannibalize just someone at random to enlist in general. And they told them that they didn't even believe we were human. They told them we were genetically altered mutants, and if we captured them, we'd eat them alive. And as a consequence, there were Marines in our company that served in the first Gulf War, and as a consequence, if the Iraqis didn't know that they were Marines, they would surrender. But once they found out they were captured by Marines, they'd freak out. One guy actually went catatonic. He went into a coma state where he just locked up and they couldn't move him. But if they knew ahead of time, if they were Marines, either A, they'd run away, or B, they'd fight to the death rather than be captured. And that's one of the reasons Marines went to a different uniform, like this. This is different from any other uniform in the U.S. military. The rest of the branches use a tricolor pattern. We use it digital. A, it's a better camouflage system, and B, it looks different for everybody else, so they know from a distance who they're going up with. And with the reputation that Marines have worldwide, if they have foreknowledge that they're going up against Marines, either A, they just surrender outright or they run away, and it saves us a lot of time and problems.
So when like an Iraqi prisoners like time was up, you would just they would ask, or you would ask them like where they wanted to go, and you just take them.
Yep, and give them $10. That was part of their package. As far as getting released, we drop them off where they wanted to be dropped off with, and give them $10 to get back. Because we didn't take each individual prisoner drop off in front of the house. We take them to a central location in that given area, and $10 to get them home.
What was like the climate over there?
It was, it wasn't as hot as in the southern latitudes around here in Kuwait, where it's open desert. Because in February when we were in Kuwait, it was already getting up to 100 degrees. But it got a lot cooler as we got to Baghdad, and then started to get warmer. And I think the hottest one of our towers recorded in like June or July, and it was 135 degrees.
135.
Yep. Yeah, with all that stuff on.
Even though it's that high the temperature, you guys get different uniforms like shorts?
No, this is the exact. I had two sets. Wear one, wash the other, and you wear long sleeves, all your body armor, all your ammunition, and weapon, plus the helmet.
And were you allowed to like roll up your sleeves?
No, we don't roll up our sleeves. It's really not a tactically sound thing to do. If you have to dive on the ground or crawl anywhere, the sleeves protect your arms from getting cut up and bruised that way. And it's also for chemical agents. Like you get hit with a chemical agent, it's not 100% protection, but it's better than bare skin contact. And it's not just like chemical warfare, but I mean even like mace or OC, who knows what they're going to use on this. So,
This will have to be the last question, Sam.
Did you ever wear like normal clothes like when you were at night?
yeah, we had to wear our body armor everywhere except within our living compounds. There's 4 smaller wall compounds I was talking about. Once we were inside our living compound, yeah, we could drop the body armor. And I spent a lot of time hanging out in sandals and a few t-shirts and t-shirts.
I think it's time to thank Corporal Bostic for visiting our class and for serving our country. How about that, everybody? Time to
Second time you chirp, you say, "Hi, Mom." Miss Wet. Should I turn off the camera?
Dude, not hit.
It operates the same way your eyes do. Your eyes pick up different wavelengths. I assume you had the science class, but we don't use it. I know this is reflecting.
the lights on.
Yeah.
It is the same thing except for heat. Like, I only know that this chalkboard's up there because it's reflecting light.
I'm just gonna pause this.
For 2 years and down to Southern for another 2 years to get my bachelor's, Southern in Carbondale. And got my bachelor's in December of last year. And that's when my unit got deployed to Iraq. In fact, we got the phone call telling us that we were leaving on Christmas Eve. So that was my Christmas present to my parents, was telling them I was going to Iraq. Checked in at Terre Haute, Indiana on January 5th. Terre Haute, Indiana is where our unit's out. It's where we're headquartered out of. So checked in there, spent about a week in Terre Haute, and left for California for training. All reserve units get like a 2-month period of training. That's one big difference between us and the active duty side, is that we're trained the same way, but we just don't have the same opportunities to practice again and again that training. So usually it takes a few months to learn some new skills that come along and brush up on your old ones. We did just a lot of infantry stuff. That being my job in the military is in the infantry. We had some weapons handling, some urban warfare training, things like this. And once that was completed, we left for Iraq. Flew out of California in a cargo plane and landed in Kuwait in late February. And we were in Camp Victory, Kuwait, February. Camp Victory, Kuwait for, we were in Camp Victory, Kuwait for a week or so, and then moved up to the Udari Range Complex. You can see here, this is Kuwait, and the Udari Range Complex is like 15 minutes from the border, and it's a big staging area to move into the, move up north to get in country. We had about a 3-day convoy getting up to the prison. It was it's probably one of the toughest things we had while we were over there, was that initial convoy, because it was 3 days long. Had it was real stressful being out on the road that long, with the sand, the noise, and the heat, and just constantly being on the road all day. Once we got to the prison, we got our duty assignments. Each platoon in our company had a different assignment, and my platoon was selected for convoy security. And that was my first job there at the prison, was a convoy commander. And my main responsibility was getting back and forth between Baghdad. The prison, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but the prison's like 45 minutes west of Baghdad, this being a map of Baghdad. And my responsibility was getting here to the green zone as the Tigris River comes through Baghdad and bows out like this. And it's this area here along the prison that's the military headquarters there. It's where our headquarters are at. It's where Saddam's headquarters were at. There's also a big hospital in there called the 31st Combat Surgical Hospital. And about 2-3 times a week I had to take prisoners and military personnel into the hospital for mostly medical tests, sometimes surgery. Did that 3-4 times a week. Then about once a week we'd have to go up to Camp Anaconda, which is just south of Tikrit. Tikrit being Saddam's hometown. And it is, there's Tikrit. Camp Anaconda's, I think it's on the southwestern area, right around in there. And that was just basically just picking up supplies. The other thing that I did was prisoner releases. Once once somebody who'd been captured and found to be not guilty, or they had served their prison term, they were released. And they just get a group of prisoners together who were from basically the same area. We put them on charter buses, and I'd escort those charter buses to wherever that location was and drop them off there. Like I said, we were as far north as Tikrit, and we actually made one run down to Al-Hilla, which is right here. There's Baghdad, there's Al-Hilla, and we stopped in at Camp Babylon. And if you remember your ancient history, Camp Babylon was the capital of Mesopotamia. Well, Babylon is still there. Now it's a U.S. military base. We put a base there to protect the artifacts located there from looters and whatnot. It was a real nice base to visit, real interesting. It's also, if you remember the Bible story of the Tower of Babel, where all these people were building this great tower, that's supposedly where it was located. That was Babylon, and how everyone started speaking a different language so they couldn't complete the tower, and that's why it's called Babel, for the babbling sound that everyone thought everyone was making. And that still holds true today. Camp Babylon is an international base. When I was there was 27 different countries speaking 17 different languages while they were stationed at this base. When I was at the Chow Hall, which is what we call our cafeteria, I was at the Chow Hall. I was sitting at a table with a sergeant from Mongolia and 2 commandos from the Ukraine. So it's just a very diverse place. And once we were done with convoys, I spent a month on the base Quick Reaction Force. Quick Reaction Force is exactly what it sounds like. You react to situations in and around the base. If you were to be if the base was going to be attacked someplace, we would go there to reinforce it. Most importantly, common thing we ended up doing was reinforcing the front gate. There was always for a while, it was real common to have riots out there at the front gate. You'd go up there to support the personnel working the gate, and they'd have riots inside the prison compound. We'd go there to not necessarily deal with the prisoners. We never dealt with prisoners, but what we would do was secure the compound to make sure none of them got outside of the wire. Didn't really do a whole lot when we were in QRF. I think out of the entire month we only had 2 or 3 missions. It was actually pretty boring. Then moved into Tower Watch, which is there's towers all along the perimeter of this base. And the most important thing we did in the tower was to watch for mortars. That's the most common form of attack that we've received was incoming mortars. For those of you who don't know, mortar is basically a big steel tube, and you have the actual mortar round where you drop it in the tube, and once it slides down to the bottom, it would hit the firing pin. And this mortar, which is an explosive device, will launch out of the tube and arc up and come down, and wherever it hits, it explodes. And they would actually get close enough to where we could either hear the round going off, being launched out of the tube, makes a very distinctive boom sound. And sometimes they'd even they'd be in a position where we could see the flash from the tube and try and call in fire on that to stop them. Other than that, it's pretty boring there too. Didn't really have a whole lot to see or do. We only got attacked a few times while I was up there. And then for the last month, I was moved to the front gate. There were 2 gates to the prison. One was a side gate, and that's where U.S. military vehicles enter and exit. But the front gate is where local nationals come on the base. There's quite a bit of civilian contractors that come on there to do construction work. They're building a lot there at the prison, so it's local nationals that are coming on and doing the work and supplying the construction supplies. And in fact, there's an entire company there that feeds the prisoners local food so they don't have to eat our food. And did that. That wasn't too bad. It was a lot better than Towers. It was a lot better schedule. We had probably about the second most dangerous thing we did there. We had you'll see pictures of it there, a bomber of a truck that we had to detonate in our search pit. We found an explosive device in the gas tank and had to, we didn't know what the trigger was for it, so we had to blow it up in place. Had like one drive-by while I was out there at the front gate, and there's other times I took fire from the village across the street. And that was basically it. What I did up there was when these local nationals would come on base and have badges for their vehicles, and I'd make sure that their badges were legit, that they were supposed to be on base, and I'd stage them in a parking lot. And from the parking lot at 2 or 3 at a time, I moved them into our search pit where they go through a very detailed search of their vehicles. And for the last 2 weeks, I worked at entry control point west. There were 2 entry control points on the base, east and west. And west was where, when local nationals were being searched there at the search pit, they would go to ECP West to park their vehicles. And that's where I'd issue them their personal badges, which they weren't allowed to take off base for security reasons. But it's a badge with their picture on it, and it's color coded and lets people know that where they're supposed to be on base and where they're not supposed to be on base. And it's also where we stored a lot of the weapons that people would bring on base. Iraqis are allowed to have weapons, and I think each Iraqi is allowed 1 rifle and or 1 pistol, and we allowed them to. There was no restrictions on them carrying them. We just didn't want them to carry them on base. They would carry them in their vehicles for protection from bandits and terrorists, because terrorists they started attacking our workers for associating with us, so they carried weapons to protect themselves. But we wouldn't let them bring them on base. So they'd check them in at the vehicle search pit, and once the search pit closed down at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the weapons were brought back to my shed there at the west gate. And I would hold on to the weapons until they left, and when they leave, I'd give them back their weapons. And also cell phones. They weren't allowed to carry cell phones on base either. And that's it. Worked there for 2 weeks. I'll get to the questions after. I worked there for 2 weeks. Our mission officially ended there September 17th, and we left the prison September 20th, and we convoyed to Al-Taqaddum, which is by Fallujah. You've heard from a lot of talk about Fallujah and Ramadi, towns like that in the news. Those are all west of the prison around here, Lake Habaniya. You follow this road. This big body of water here is Lake Habaniya. Now it's Al-Taqaddum. It was an old Iraqi air base. Now it's a Marine air base. And we stayed there for a week, and we left Iraq officially October 1st. Took a C-130 out of Al-Taqaddum to Kuwait, and then took a commercial air flight from Kuwait to Germany to Baltimore, Maryland, back on to California. We spent like another week in California just doing paperwork, and we had to get our health evaluations done because you're always medically tested when you come back from a foreign country. We spent a week doing that and got home in Terre Haute, and then consequently home here in Bloomington Normal on October 9th. That was basically my time in Iraq. Your question?
Why couldn't they have cell phones?
On the base, because of the mortar attacks, we didn't want them on base. With a mortar, you may not get your first round where you want it the first time, and you have to know where it impacted at to move it to where you do want it to hit. Like if I wanted to hit that building across the street, I would need to know where my first round hit to move it. And we didn't want them with their cell phones on the base, like when a mortar attack would come in, some guy getting on his cell phone saying, hey, move it, 5 yards to the north and it'll be dead center. We didn't want them doing that, so that's why we didn't allow them to bring cell phones on the base. And it's also just a convenient place to carry explosives. You can mold plastic, you can mold explosives to look exactly like a battery pack. And even the wires coming out of it will look exactly like a wire leads on a battery, and all you have to do is turn the phone on to detonate it as a bomb. So we just eliminated the problem by taking all their cell phones away and getting them back when they leave. Another question?
How is Iraq different from here, like Illinois or the United States?
Like as far as weather?
No, as far as people and, weather and like, how is it, like culture and stuff?
The culture is very, very different. The people are, no matter where you go in the country, where you go in the world, you're going to find out the people are basically the same. It's just the rules that people go by are different. Their rules are a lot stricter than ours. Even the more modern, right, or you might want to say westernized Iraqis, they're a lot more conservative than we are. And that conservatism goes all the way to the extreme Islamic fundamentalists that want to have the country ruled under Islamic law. And Islamic law is anywhere from, you see a lot of these extremists practicing this law in extreme form. Like if they see a woman walking down the street and she's not in her robe and face veil, they'll kill her. Like You could be killed for walking down the street wearing dressed the way you are. So could you. And you basically, what we consider okay over them is unacceptable. They'll kill you for dressing like that. They also kill a guy and a girl hanging out together. They're not married and they don't have a chaperone with them. That's a death sentence. That's in the extreme form. That's really the people that we're fighting. But overall, even Iraqis that don't believe in following Islamic law, you'll find them more conservative than you will over here. But and as far as the weather goes, they're on the same seasonal rotation as we are. Like when we have summer, they have summer, and winter and so forth. But it's just degrees hotter. I think the hottest we had over there, one of our towers topped out at 135 degrees.
135 degrees. I gotta interrupt for just a minute to follow up on Robin's question and your answer about the extremism and conservatism. We had that spectrum, that line that I drew on the board 2 days ago, and I had communism on one end of the line and I had fascism on the other end of the line. Now, Corporal has just added another form of extremism on that line. It would be on the right-hand side. It would be conservatism, and I had the word conservative on the line, all the way to the extreme. And this time it's Islamic fundamentalism, where the woman gets killed for not wearing the right clothing. That's no liberty. All right, so on each end of the spectrum is no liberty. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. Brandy, are you the one that I interrupted? Are you the one that had the question?
Oh yeah, did you catch on to any of the things that they were saying? Like,
Yeah, there's a little bit of an Arabic that we had to learn. With the limited English that some of them knew, the limited Arabic that I knew, and a lot of charades. I got really good at charades while I was over there. Most of what you learn is the hand and arm signals. The Arabic people talk with their hands a lot. There's a lot of movement with their hands, like this is friend. Like if they walk to, like use Siddiqui is the word for friend, they go, no, Siddiqui. And we learned the hard way, or I wouldn't say the hard way, but the scary way to learn that what this means. We were on a convoy one time, we were stopping, there's like trees and bushes along the road, and some kid comes popping out of the bushes. He's like, mister, like that. And we thought this meant someone's going to be shooting at us. You know, it looks like he's launching a mortar. So we start freaking out and getting down and getting inside the vehicles and screaming and yelling to start providing security and stuff like that. And just luckily, there was someone on the convoy that had seen this before, and he's like, no. He's asking if his sheep can cross the road. That's when if they want their sheep to cross the road, this is how they ask permission. And we still kind of look at the guy funny. He's like, no, it's really. He's like, Zian, good, come. And the kid, sure enough, turns around and he whistles, and as he runs across the street, here's a herd of sheep following him across the street. So that was a scary moment that actually turned out to be kind of funny. But just, you learn a lot of the greetings, like Maha Salam Aleika is a formal greeting. Informal would be Shakumaku, which really has no literal translation in English. It's just Shakumaku, and you say back Shakazia. Yeah, Shakazia. And Zien, which is good, and yes and no, which is la and nam, or yes is nam and la is no. What I learned most was the Arabic number system, which is exactly the same as ours. It's 10 integer. Even some of the numbers like 1 and 9 are the same. 3 is actually, the backwards 3 is there 4. This kind of looks like 3, just at a different angle. And there, our 4 was there 6. Our 0 is there 5. It's very simple. Really easy to pick up on. Their numbering system is exactly, in fact, that's where we got our numbering system from. You know, you're in math class learning algebra. It's the Arabs that invented algebra. So that's just little bits and pieces to be able to talk to the locals, or at least be cordial to them.
do you have any wounds?
Do I have any wounds from fighting? No, but I did have 9 staples put in my head where I ran through a doorway. We slept in old prison cell blocks, and Arabs are considerably shorter than I am, so the doors are about yay tall. And I think I was leaving on a QRF mission, or I was running somewhere. I didn't duck low enough here, going underneath this door jam. I clocked myself on the head and had to have a medic put about 9 staples in my head. 6'5", 6'4" and some change, something like that. No, I'm terrible at basketball. Anything else?
Like, did you ever see like the kids playing games with your students?
Yeah, when I was on Tower Watch, there were two little kids, Malik and Moody. They'd always come up to the tower, and we'd give them candy and soap or shampoo, whatever we had. And they were always good for a few hours of entertainment. They were always goofing around and outside the tower. In fact, one of them got a hold of a toy gun. They had gotten a piece of wood that kind of looked like a gun, and they were messing around with it. And they started taking rocks out of this field, and like the tower is like here and facing this way. Well, they're down in this field stacking up rocks facing back at us. And then they crouched down behind this little wall and put up this little toy gun on the wall, and they're mimicking what we're doing. Because while we're in the tower, every hour we have to get on the radio and call Shadow Main for a radio check. Shadow Main was the tactical control center for our base, and you just check in every hour to make sure you're still on the net. So every hour we have to pick up the radio and go, Shadow Main, radio check. They'd come back, radio check over. And here's these little kids that are crouched down behind this wall, and they have a bottle of water in their hands just like we do, sipping out of a bottle of water every once in a while. And like every few minutes, one of the little kids would put his hand up to his head and go, Shadow Main, and it was just funny goofing around like that. They play soccer every once in a while. They're huge soccer fans over there. In fact, probably about the worst night as far as getting shot at was when the local team won the soccer tournament. One of the big things that they have over there is, one of the big cultural things they have over there is something called celebratory fire. Like if you get a promotion at work, or one of your kids is born or whatever, it's not uncommon for guys just to walk outside their house with an automatic weapon and fire a magazine off in the air. And man, when the hometown team won the soccer game, it was unreal. Just the entire town lit up. And all you'd see off to the north and the east was red tracers just going straight up in the air. It sounded like World War III. It was like for an hour straight. It was unlike any 4th of July show I've ever seen in my life. It was nuts.
Did you know anybody in like Bloomington or anybody in Illinois that you saw were there? Like,
well, there's a lot of guys from Illinois. I'd say about a third or a half of our company, which is about 140 men, were from Illinois, and several of them are here in town. One was a teacher in Unit 5. My squad leader lives just down the road from me. I knew one of the guys since high school, stuff like that. As far as seeing any other units there, I escorted a National Guard unit, the 1534th. Here in the newspaper about a week or so ago, that lady that was killed that was over there, she was in the 1544. I escorted them on a convoy one time, and they're out of Paris, Illinois. Yeah, that unit's out of Paris, Illinois, and they're out of, I think they're based out of Log Base Sites, which is at the Baghdad International Airport. You have Baghdad International Airport like this, which is a base, and then which is a huge base in and of itself, and there's several other huge bases around it. It's just a massive complex. I mean, you have BIOP, you have Wolverine, Slayer, Camp Victory North, Log Base Sites, Camp Flexible, just all the way around this. And I was on a run to Camp Flexible one time, and that's where I linked up with them at. But as far as that's the only Illinois unit that I ever known. And met a few people from Chicago, like that. They were in the Army.
did you get sick any time when you were over here? Did you?
Yes, and in fact, we all had a bout with dysentery, which is the rose. When that first chow hall was there, I mean, you have 2 or 3 days of being sick, and then 2 or 3 days of being constipated, and 2 or 3 days of being normal, and going back to the first 2 or 3 days of having the runs, and 2 or 3 days of being constipated, and 2 or 3 days of being normal. This went on for about 2 months with that first chow hall. But when we first got in Kuwait, I got real sick. Like the first night we were there, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it felt like someone had punched me in the stomach, and I spent the next like 6 or 7 hours throwing up. They actually had to take me to the base medical and put about 2 IV bags in me to get me rehydrated. And nobody never found out exactly what it was from, or what. Just mostly everybody at their time there gets sick at least once. And it's expected with all the different germs and the different environment you're in. Do you have another question? Someone else? Yeah.
Yeah, can you tell us like what platoon you're in?
second platoon. Second platoon, Company K, and then 324, which is just 3/24, stands for 3rd Battalion, 24th Marines. Second platoon, Kilo Company or Company K. 3rd Battalion, 24th Marine Regiment. Yeah, that's all. Just write K324.
24th,
24th Marine Regiment.
The dog that's in the picture.
That's Jocko. That was his name. He was a police dog. The handler there, his name is Calloway, and they're both in the U.S. Navy. In fact, the dog, I think, actually outranked his handler, because the dogs that go into the military pick up rank, just like a regular soldier or sailor does. In fact, they can actually get busted down the same way. You know, I saw a dog once get charged with assaulting an officer and bit some officer in the back of the leg. He actually got charged with assaulting an officer and was court-martialed. It's kind of funny watching a court-martial for a dog, but yeah, he was our bomb-sniffing dog. And he was definitely the alpha male out of all the other dogs there, because he was not only the biggest and the baddest, but he was also the best trained. He was certified for sniffing bombs, certified for search and rescue, certified as attack, he's an attack dog, and certified for patrolling. So patrolling just means the dog has a lot of self-control, not to bark and do stuff like that, because you don't want a dog barking his head off while you're out on patrol. But the funniest thing was the attack. We were watching out there, because they're practicing with these dogs constantly. And they'd always con somebody into wearing the sleeve, you know, the big armored sleeve. They got this one kid out there in our platoon, Larry, he ain't very big, he's a little guy. They get this sleeve on, and Calloway's like, okay, I want you to go take off running that way. And when he gets you, because you ain't going to get away, he will get you. It's like when he's going to hit you from the back of the arm. And don't fall on him, because I don't want you to hurt my dog, and don't fall to where you kill yourself, but try and land flat out and just keep your balance. Larimer takes off running. Jocko, he's a big dog. He takes off running and hits him in the back of the arm and spins him around. And when he lands, he's trying to land with his arms out, but he lands like this, with the dog's face running like this, going, so he's laying on the ground with his eye off with his attack dog who has a hold of his arm. Calloway's running up, don't make any sudden moves, don't make any sudden moves.
Like what?
So, but real big asset to have with the, because he's the one that found the bomb in the truck. And if we hadn't found that bomb in the truck, we would have driven it into the back of our chow hall, because that was it's actually a trash truck, and or a garbage truck, and he was there every day, and every day we'd go to the back of the chow hall to get the dumpsters, to empty out the dumpsters there. And it was just a flat stretch of road from the main road through the prison to the back of the chow hall. That's what they were planning on doing, was just to drive right past the dumpsters into the back of the chow hall. And they probably had about 10 pounds of C4 inside that gas tank. I mean, it made a pretty big explosion when it went off. And, during chow time, there's about 500 people in that building, either eating chow or using the phones or internet or in the rec room. So that dog saved our lives.
Are there roads like our kind of roads?
Yeah, they have a very well-developed infrastructure with the majority of the roads that we were on were 3 and 2-lane highways with on-ramps just like we have. And, the only difference between their road system is whereas their highways, like you can see, like these lines highlighted in red, and some of these that aren't highlighted are very well kept in very good shape. Where even it's better than some of our roads, like MSR Mobile there at the South Prison is actually in better shape than 55 before they started working on it. But they don't have these smaller roads like we do. They don't have the well-maintained streets that go through their towns and stuff like that. I mean, it goes from these 2 and 3 lane major highways to donkey trails and dirt paths.
What side of the road do you use?
Same. Exactly the same as driving the right side. Well, they drive on the right side. We drive on whatever side we feel like. Out there, we own the road. You do whatever you need to do to protect yourself. There were sometimes I made more than one run to Baghdad, going the entire way on the opposite side of the road. I've crashed through medians, driven through fences and yards just to get to where I had to go. Well, I got actually lost in Baghdad one time, which is probably one of the scariest times I was over there. Not only because A, you're lost in Baghdad, and B, it was my responsibility and my fault. There was a traffic jam up ahead of us and we were going to stop for it because you don't know whether you're going to be stopped legitimately or whether you're going to be stopped and be attacked. And took the exit ramp to ford the traffic jam and thought I could get back on, couldn't. And one of my guys who was up in a turret recognized a tower that looked familiar, so we cut across country through, going sideways across roads and through ditches and yards and stuff like that till we got back out on that road. So.
Do they use a lot of electricity, or is it?
Yes, pretty much everyone there that had electrical supply before the war has it now. We're taking electricity farther out into the country. In fact, the electricity facilities or the electrical power plants now are producing more electricity than they did before the 1991 Gulf War. So.
I was looking at the picture. Is there like subway just like ours?
It is our subway. It's a fully operational subway, and that's not in Iraq. That's in Kuwait. No, that's at Camp Victory in Kuwait, and it's run by I guess it'd be Kuwaitis. They're the run it. Yeah, it's exactly the same as ours.
Aren't the Kuwaitis like fighting you though? Isn't they make a place?
No. Kuwait's actually one of our biggest allies in the Persian Gulf War. We're the ones that we liberated Saddam in the 1991 Gulf War. We fought that because Saddam invaded Kuwait, and the 1991 Gulf War was used to expel Iraq from Kuwait. And since then, Kuwait's been a very strong ally of ours, so it's a very secure location. A lot of good stuff. Good stuff goes on every day. Every day you don't hear anything bad. Millions of things go right every day in Iraq. Every day we didn't get shot at. Every day we did the right thing. It was a good day. Some of the big good things that are going on, they've taken over their government now. They're now a sovereign nation unto themselves. There's actually an Iraqi council. They either have or they will be electing a president here very shortly. Like I said, the power plants are producing more electricity than they did prior to the 91 invasion. Same way with their water treatment facilities, now purifying more water than they ever did before. 100% of their hospitals are up and running now. In fact, one of the big things they did while I was over there was get a medical warehouse started in Baghdad that was actually air conditioned. Because before, all their medical warehouses weren't air conditioned. And it gets so hot over there that batches of their supplies would be ruined because the temperature, like glass and plastic vials, were melting. So they were always constantly dealing with medical shortages. Now they don't have that problem because we got that warehouse in Baghdad. Just a lot of good stuff out there. Yes, went through a lot of water. When the real hot months like June and July, when I was out there in the sun all day out there at the front gate, I was drinking 6 or 7 bottles per shift, and we were on like a 4 or 5 hour shift depending upon which day I was. And a bottle of water is 1.5 liters, so I was going through 7 1.5 liter bottles about 5 hours. So, and that really wasn't even keeping me hydrated. That was just keeping me from passing out because I was still, still felt dehydrated. The one way they always taught us to tell if you were hydrated or not is the color of your urine. If your urine is, if you've been drinking water and your urine is clear, then you're hydrated, and the darker yellow